everybody in America had an opportunity during the Whitney Houston funeral to glimpse inside a Baptist church and what happens in those kinds of communities, which I think is really, really fascinating. Number one, the heart and the singing. Do you do a lot of singing in your church?
Yes, my husband is a singing pastor. In fact, there are Sunday evenings when I have to say to him, okay, enough. Right? Let the choir sing, because you're extending the service by about 30 additional minutes with your additional songs that you decide to sing and want everybody to be a part of. But, you know, I really believe in the Baptist faith and the Baptist tradition. Singing has been an important part of learning and living, if you will, the gospel. And if you go back to, if you go back to slavery, it was the songs that often got people through what they had to go through. And some of that has carried on in the tradition of Baptist faith, but other Protestant denominations too that are African American congregations. So the music is a very, very important part of the service. My husband likes to say that the music is the seasoning for what is the gospel, God's word that comes following that. But the music often gets you to a point where you can pay more close attention to the word. And I think the Whitney Houston piece, what I think people saw is that those are celebrations of life. They're not funerals. You know, you think of a funeral, you think of something that's very morose and very dark. But when you go to a Baptist church, it is typically a celebration of their life. And the message that is sent is less about the person who has passed and more about the people who are living and what you need to do with your life going forward.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's really interesting. I thought it was really interesting. It is a cultural comment. I think the African American community really drove what the Baptist church and many communities are today through the singing, because you know it, because my mother was a Southern you know, Southern girl and raised in that, and how much that was so important as part of that culture, which I love. I love, you know, I'd like to go to a place where we have gospel music, you know, because that kind of uplifting, it's just like that joy. That incredible. In fact, one of my girlfriends here, where I said, "Where's a great gospel church I want to go?" And we're talking. I'm going to go to church with her one day because I just love to sing, and I think that there's a connection that happens. I'm not here proselytizing anything. Everybody has a right to be whatever. I think singing just is such an incredible expression. I think we should all sing a lot more. Well, my husband doesn't think I should sing more, but in a choir environment where I'm just, he'll
well,
go.
It's amazing how you can get. One voice by itself may not be perfect, but when you put them all together, they always kind of sound harmonious. It's amazing.
When I was in choir, I had my, actually it was in choir, I had my choir teacher actually used to coach Frank Sinatra, and he came up to me and he goes, "It's okay to mouth." Because I really put my heart and soul on it. He said, "Just mouth." I had to think about that, So I just kind of tried to really throw myself in it. So, but I really do love to sing. So what's going on this year for you? What's the rest of the year got for you?
Let's see. What does my oldest is graduating from college? Yay!
Oh my gosh! And what's her degree in?
Her degree is in political science. She's very interested in international development and law. She has the proud distinction of being one of the DC 41, I think it was, the 41 people who got arrested for DC vote and voting,
so you're like,
voting
hooray,
rights.
you went to jail,
So well, it was one of those, okay, you're in jail, well, call your dad because mom doesn't do jail, but you're okay, right?
And mom doesn't do jail.
But she's very much in the vein of her father as an activist, really believes in social justice issues and wants to do that work. And she's right now doing an internship with an international development firm. So that's going to be exciting. That's the Saturday before Mother's Day. What a great Mother's Day gift to have your daughter graduate from college. And let's see, I don't know that I have any other big plans this year. Last year was the 25th wedding anniversary, so that was a big deal. And the year before that was the 50th birthday, so that was a big deal. But it's interesting, now that I am over 50, I like life as it comes, and I don't overthink things any longer. You get to a point where you say, all right, enough. I don't have but so much time. So if we're going to do this, we're going to go ahead and do it. So we don't have any big plans for the coming year beyond the graduation, and that's going to be a wonderful event. We're really, really looking forward to it.
I think it's wonderful. You've been fascinating. So I want to see if we have any questions here from our audience who'd like to ask you about Community Foundation, about your life, about you, about your kids, anything. About where to go get good gospel food or good Southern food, you know, so wherever. You know, we open the whole door here. Does anybody have any questions for us? Yes, ma'am.
I do. I worked in Baltimore for several years.
Okay.
Kudos to you guys for keeping it up because I gave it up for the community.
It's something.
But I find it that the philanthropic community in Baltimore is cut from a very different cloth than in D.C. and I'd love to get your
You know, that's interesting, just so we make sure we get this on the camera and the voice, is that, you know, the difference in Baltimore is a community foundation raising money. But I would, and the thing is, it's cut from a different cloth, so it appears very different in terms of that community. I would bet that's almost true of any city. Is that right?
There are some distinguishing characteristics, and you're absolutely right. You're familiar with the Baltimore Community Foundation, and I'm familiar with the Community Foundation. Baltimore is just a very different place than is metropolitan Washington, D.C. In fact, never the twain shall meet if some folks would have their way. Baltimore is far more traditional, multiple generations of folks who are in Baltimore. It's interesting. I find in Baltimore that when people ask you, what school did you go to, and you start naming the college, they're not interested in college. They want to know what high school you went to, which is just a totally kind of different thing than what we have here. So folks have been there for a while. I find that it's also a little bit more male-dominated than it is here. We have a lot more women who are engaged in philanthropy, from my perspective. Now, I could be wrong, but this is just from my perspective. But the thing about here is that, one, we do still have a transient population, so people come and go from all over, right? Their interests are different. We also generate wealth here at a much younger age than what is typical for most communities, so you will find younger people engaged in philanthropy here. The corporate presence in Baltimore has been more of a part of Baltimore life than it has been here. Our big, industry is government. So that brings with it a whole different type of perspective on philanthropy as well. You would think actually that we'd be a little bit more bureaucratic in our philanthropy, but I'm not sure that that is the case in comparison to Baltimore. The other thing is, Baltimore is just focused on Baltimore, whereas we're focused on the district and Montgomery County and Prince George's County and Northern Virginia. And you put all of that stuff together and you get this hodgepodge of different people and different interests in different communities. But I would say that from my take on philanthropy in the community there, it's a little bit more focused, a little bit more linear, more male-dominated, more traditional is what I see in Baltimore. And I think it's easier, in fact, for the Baltimore Community Foundation to really say, we want you to just give us unrestricted support to build our endowment so we can continue to build Baltimore as a great city. That resonates with Baltimoreans. It's a harder sell in DC to say, give us unrestricted support because we want to just make sure that DC is a great place to live, because DC is a great place to live, and they may not necessarily see the district as being the place where they need to spend most of their philanthropic resource. So it is an interesting place. Midwest is a lot. Baltimore is very much like the Midwest, where people are very wedded to that community, that city. That's where they're from. We will live and die by the Ravens, and that is what they do. And DC is a little bit different.
I think it's really interesting, but you look at DC, and I bet if you went to New York, you'd see a different focus. Mm-hmm. Everywhere you go, the consciousness of that community is going to be a little bit different. You look at Washington, D.C., we're not just a community. We are the most unique, dynamic area in the world if you think about it. Number one, we're totally international. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's an international port of the exchange of ideas of countries, the most important power in the world sits here. I think also you look at daytime what Washington D.C. is, nighttime they're two different places. You know, other cities. Baltimore's probably pretty much the same during the day and during the night. Washington D.C. is not the same city after 5 that it is during the day. Because so you have to bring a mental, I would say a different mental focus.
Absolutely. In fact, you could go back, if you go back 20 years, there wasn't much of a nighttime D.C. I mean, you think about it, D.C. kind of rolled up after about 6 o'clock in the evening and everybody went out of the city. Now I'm just amazed. I go down by Gallery Place and it's like no matter what time you go down there, it's packed. And that's wonderful. And the vibrancy that the city has tells me that there frankly are a lot of people here who can get more engaged in philanthropy in some way, shape, or form.
Just watch it when she's looking at you. She's just wondering what's in your pocket. Do we have any other questions here? Thoughts, comments?